Janet Skeslin Charles, and we're going to talk about the Parseason chapter. Am I correct on saying it?
Yes, the Parisian chapter, absolutely.
Parisian chapter. Appreciate you coming by and tell us this kind of journey of how you became an author, first of all, and then we'll go into the story.
Well, I'm originally from a small town in Montana, and I've always wanted to write. So I was always journaling or watching people or listening and kind of trying to write short stories or poetry. And then I got a job at the American Library in Paris as the programs manager. And I just felt immediately that the place was a novel and started to write. That was in 2010.
Okay. All right. And then you said this is what you love to do.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
All right. So let's kind of like jump into specifically the storyline for this book.
So the storyline of this book is a 20-something who comes to Paris, and she lived next to a war bride, a French war bride. So she had a very romantic idea of what Paris might be. And some of those things are true, the magic of the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre, but some things are not quite so romantic. And she gets a job, and she also works at the American Library in Paris and meets an incredible cast of characters. And so this is her story of growing up, and making all those big decisions we make in our 20s about where we work, who our friends are, who we might date and make a life with, and really who we are.
Right, exactly, because that who we are is what defines who we are in so many ways for people around us and everything. For sure.
Exactly. Exactly. So she's going through all of these big changes, and it's kind of, I don't know about you in your 20s, but I found it to be a very stressful time. All the doors were open, so it's really exciting to think about all the possibilities, but when there are so many possibilities, it's kind of scary too.
Yeah, we have so many possibilities. How do you make those decisions? How do you navigate
Exactly.
those? What is the right decision to make?
Exactly.
Is it to go to door A or door B? And why do you think she has so many opportunities?
I think she just, she could stay in Paris, she could go back home, she could date this guy or that guy. She could go forward with her career as a writer or give it up. So she has all of these things that she's thinking about, and sometimes we have this dream, and sometimes dreams come true. Sometimes they take a lot longer to come true than we think they will. And so she's at that point in her life where she's going to have to make some hard decisions.
And do you feel that your character reminds you of you at all?
I think we both worked in the same place. And we both definitely wanted to be writers, but I think Lily was more optimistic than I was, and maybe a bit more hopeful than I was, because I was in my late 30s when I had the job, and she was in her early 20s.
And I see what you're saying. So it's basically a situation where that based on how you felt that story would go, but
Yes.
some of it reminds you. Do you kind of wish some of the characteristics of Lily are like you?
I like her optimism, and I think once we
Hmm.
get older, reality sets in a little bit. So yes, I really like how optimistic she is, and she really helps. She has a best friend who's kind of given up her dream, and so Lily really helps to ignite that fire under her best friend. So, I hope that I'm that kind of a friend where I can help people and help them see their dreams through. I would love to be like that.
And sometimes hard to do that, right? It's hard when we're so caught up in our lives to go to someone else's life and say, okay, I really want to be that good friend, but I got so much going on. Expound on that a bit.
Exactly.
Yeah, expound on
Exactly.
that. Yeah.
Well, and it's hard to know, Lily thinks that she knows what's best. And so her friend Mary Louise wants to give up her dream of being an artist because it's just become so kind of demoralizing. There's so much rejection, there's so much competition. And so do you listen to what your best friend is saying? About giving up, or do you kind of push them forward? And that's a hard question to answer because only the best friend knows what's the best. So we
And
can
how
kind of
many
guess and
best
hope.
friends do we want them to tell us what to do? That's the hard part, right? Do you really want your best friend to say, you shouldn't be doing this. And because sometimes being a hard friend and that advice can lead to a breakup of sorts or a resentment.
Exactly. And I think we don't really talk about friend breakups enough. They can be just as hard as romantic breakups.
Yes.
So
And it's
it's
like,
hard to lose a friend. Yeah,
it's hard to lose a friend. It's hard to lose anything. A loss is hard in any way. And we're not taught how to deal with it at the end of
it's
the
so
day.
true.
And
No,
see,
it's so true.
and I think that Lily is something we need to all be, right? We got to look at, man, we have all these opportunities. The mistake we make as human beings is we look at our failures versus all our successes in the day. Okay, we
I
had
think,
this long
yeah.
day, and the more our day is so many things, there's going to be pitfalls. How do we respond to those pitfalls? Because that leads to other pitfalls. Because our human nature takes us into other issues.
Well, and you're so right that a lot of times our brain is just hardwired to focus on what's wrong instead of what's right. And so we think about what we've done wrong instead of all the positive things that we've done. And so you can really spiral really quite quickly. So that's why it's really nice to have a friend who can kind of remind you, who knows you really well and can remind you of all of the successes that you've had, even if you don't feel like, even if you can't remember them, or if you're kind of shy about saying, yeah, that was okay. I did a good job there.
And that's the thing. You did do a good job. And that's what we have to pat ourselves on the back to do. But what do you think causes us to get in our own way? And I think
I don't
Lily
know.
shows that. Lily shows us that we don't have to get in our own way.
No, I read somewhere that it takes three positive um, compliments for us to remember for us to forget one negative thing. So it's like 3 to 1 almost, where we're just hardwired to kind of dwell on the negative. And so we really need to be more positive like Lily.
We have to be more self, wanting our own self validation versus others. I used to always want other people's validation. I sure as heck don't want that anymore. I want the wins, but I don't need to be validated by someone else. I
Yeah.
will get the wins myself and I'll define what my wins are versus other people define them for me.
I think that's so important to kind of set your own goals and to be content with yourself, because if you're looking for that outward validation, you can wait forever.
And moving up the ladder in success in whatever you do or whatever your job or wherever, you're never going to get that. You have to want that self validation. That's very hard. So where's the best place people can go? I know independent bookstores is a great place to pick up the book, but where else?
For my other book, yes, my other books, Miss Morgan's Book Brigade and the Paris Library, I would absolutely say independent bookstores. This book is available, it's an audiobook, so any online realtor, and you can find all of those on my website. The links are all on my website to all of the different online places like Spotify or Libro FM.
What do you think about audiobooks? It's a great new tool for authors.
I listened to Alan Cumming. I was careening through the Rockies on my way home from college. It was a book on tape back then. And it was one narrator, and I was enthralled. I didn't want my trip to end. So I think they were already great. But now, with the music, with multiple narrators, it's sometimes like just watching a movie. It's incredible. It's
All right.
incredible.
Appreciate